Well, February definitely had its ups and downs, but overall a pretty solid month. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to be doing my monthly wrap up for February, and yeah, this was definitely a mixed month for me. I had some things that I was unsure on, that I was a little mixed on. I had some things I really expected to like that I was not as keen on as I thought, but I also had some nice surprises and some really fun things as well. So we'll get in and we'll talk about it. And so I started the month off with a good one, which was The Trial of Rooker Flynn by A.R. Witham. This is book 2 in the Locke Institute trilogy. And the first one I enjoyed, but I felt like tonally I wasn't quite knowing where I was supposed to be. With book 2, it just hit the ground running. The tone had been set, the stage had been set. I knew what I was getting into, what we were doing, and man, it just delivers. Definitely no middle book syndrome in that one. It's just absolute action-packed, great character moments, and just the storytelling and the passion that A.R. Witham has always comes through in his books. This is super different in feel from Blackjack, but I just found myself really not caring, especially in this book too, because it was just good and it was enjoyable. So it was a really good way to start the month. And while this next one it's not the it's not the first book that I started reading then, but it's the next one that I finished because we had Reven Earth by Zamar Amar. This is the first book in the Book of Aestia, and I love this cover. This was a cover by, and then one I commented to. I ended up actually interacting with the author, completely unrelated. We did a buddy read together, and great guy, and so I was really interested after hearing more about the book, because originally I kind of went in blind, and it did not disappoint. This is a little bit different for me because this is more kind of character-focused grimdark. You can tell that the author's a big fan of Joe Abercrombie, which I'm not so much a fan of Joe Abercrombie, but the thing that just really pulled me in and had me there invested to begin with until I kind of got used to the characters was the world, because the world building is just fascinating here with everything that is set up. I talk a lot about it in the review if you do want to hear more, but we start off like the prologue with a bang. There's dryads, there's these different types of like magic with the sun and the moon and all kinds of really interesting things here. The earth is not turning anymore, and like there were so many just great things. So the world building fascinating, has me just dying to know more. It also has dinosaurs, so like, I'm here for that as well. But I'm really excited to continue that, and that one was I didn't really know fully what to expect, and I had a really great time, so really enjoyed there. Then one that took me a bit of time to get through, Blood over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. I did do a really in-depth kind of dissection of this, talking spoiler thoughts, because I didn't really expect this one to be for me, but I wanted to really give it a try. And I think it's well written, but I had a lot of critiques, and I think for me, there's a lot of things that could have been done differently that might have made it land better, which is a problem I've tended to have with this author. Who's a really talented author, just what she writes is just usually not quite there for me. So if you do want more, I won't go into super detail because I already did a very detailed video on it if you want to know more. But yeah, I just it's one I had some issues with. I felt it was fairly predictable and some of the themes kind of shallow, and still though, I think well done overall and well written, but just yeah, didn't quite land for me. But that's not necessarily surprising, but I was really trying to give it a good go, and was hoping it would work out. I then did, of course, This Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinniman, the new Dungeon Crawler Carl book. And this was also another one I was very excited for, and I was a little bit disappointed. I still really enjoyed this, but it was just a little bit underwhelming. And that's what something I've had with the book 6-2 was like the first half was pretty mad, but then it really delivered. This one was a little bit more consistent, and it didn't have the high highs, but it also didn't have like any particular lows. It just kind of was at kind of like mid, for lack of a better term, in a lot of ways. But I commented in my review too for this one, I think honestly it needed that. It needed to kind of reset, because this has been a book where it's just been so much crazy stuff going on, and this is we're really focusing a little bit more on the narrative. We're spending some page count on some different characters, and so while this is kind of slowing down and like leveling out a little bit, I think that's important, because you can't just keep trying to top the last book. It's not going to be sustainable. So I think this is a really smart choice, and I think this is really going to set up for some phenomenal books as we finish this series up, although this one, still was a little bit underwhelming. I also did, which ended up being just something random from the library I got, and Put Away Childish Things by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And this is a novella, and it's my first Tchaikovsky I talked about. And this was kind of an interesting one because it was a little different. It was kind of like a tonally a little bit satire, but also just very unique. And he's kind of playing around with the idea of these stories you're told as children, and plays around a lot with Narnia and some things of that ilk, and just some of those ideas and themes, but in a really unique spin of different ways. So has me very curious to try more Tchaikovsky. It's an author I've been very curious on. I know he actually has a lot of short work, so I might try out some of the very unique shorts before I jump into the novels. But one, too, I think that works really well and was interesting, and just kind of like it's also what I've been doing with some shorter things, reading out loud to my daughter, and did that with some funny British voices, which also made it fun for me. But a lot of really interesting themes and things exploring, so I'm interested to check out more Tchaikovsky for sure. So then we have the big ones that I was working on that I didn't quite finish by the end of the month. I finished in very early March. But Eleuthean, A Tale of the Fromrier by Sam Middleton. This was a review copy. And this one I still need to get my review out for. But this is another one where the world building I think is really interesting, and a lot of the themes and ideas here. Although I was a bit mixed overall with the execution. I think there's a lot of really interesting ideas, but just kind of the way a lot of things work, it has that feel of you're just kind of like, don't question it, just keep moving forward, keep doing this. And so I'm gonna talk more about my thoughts here, but I'm curious. It's a series that I would be interested to continue, although I was a little bit more mixed here, and I felt like I was a little bit slow to get to it throughout the month. But the slowest read for me, which was the most surprising, was Shadow March by Tad Williams. Now, Tad Williams' books can be a little slow, and I love Tad Williams, and I'm okay with that, but Shadow March was way more of a struggle than I really would have expected it to be. This starts off extremely slowly. There's actually kind of like a history info dump at the beginning, and then it took me a while to get into it, and I ended up actually putting this down for a while and coming back to it later in the month because I felt like I wasn't quite in the right mood. And part of it is just this is not my typical kind of story. Where Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, Austin Art, very much my kind of story with the classic fantasy feel, the big epic fantasy, quests, adventure, things like that. This is a little bit different. It's a little bit more contained within the castle of Shadow March, but it's very character focused. It's kind of has a very like classic dark fantasy feel where we're very focused on characters. It reads like it's just a little bit younger, like not specifically that it's like, you know, the modern use of it, but kind of that classic like the 50s, 60s kind of like YA where it wasn't really a defined thing at that point. So this feels very dated, even though it's actually, it's 20 plus years old, but it's not that old. It feels like it's much older than that because that's kind of the style that it's written in. And I think just a lot of it didn't quite click for me. Although I ended up with it like a lot of great things here, a lot of trope subversion, a lot of interesting things that are being explored. So I'm really curious. I think now that I have the right expectations for what this is, I will hopefully enjoy the rest of it more because I'm still going to be continuing. But I definitely wasn't sucked in right away. I do need to get a review film for that one as well, though, to talk more in depth about it also. And then finally, I mentioned I've been reading some shorter things out loud to my daughter here and there. So the next one we're doing is Blood in the Mist by Hope Nearlys, and I'm nearly half. Some of that was read in March, but slow going. Now this is another one where I've heard about this. This book's about 100 years old. Funnily enough, some of it actually reminded me of Shadow March when I started the two of them because of kind of the feel. This is something I don't know if I would still be reading if I wasn't reading out loud, because reading it out loud has given me a lot more enjoyment because the characters are kind of ridiculous and melodramatic in some ways, but like they're written that way. Like the emphasis, you know, somebody would be like, oh, you simply must do this, or like, you know, that kind of thing. So it kind of has that feel that makes it really funny to read out loud. Again, I'm using kind of silly British voices and over the top narration, which has made me enjoy it more. It's interesting. Like the writing is really technically good. It is very, very dated. And like I said, it is like a 100-year-old novel. So it does feel its age for sure. But also I can understand why people like this, even though I've not been as into it myself. This is very kind of like, you know, the fae type of, not quite fairy tale, but like the old style like fae thing, and just the style, what's going on. It's very unique, and I'm having an interesting experience. Although this is definitely not going to be a favorite for me, but it'll be a bit, I think, before I finish it. Hopefully, some point in March. But I'm not in any rush. Although it is a library book too, so I'm gonna have to return it before too long. So we'll see how I end up going with that. But that's the other thing that I've been kind of working on as well. And then March ended up starting off just all bets are off, reading all kinds of random stuff, which has been going better, I think. But so this was, like I said, had its ups and downs, some things that took me quite a lot of time to read. And some things I was just a little bit slower, some things I was a little bit more mixed on. So a little bit of a down month. March has been going great though, so I'm hoping to ramp it up, and then I'll be announcing some stuff for April coming up soon. So that'll be some fun also. But yeah, so it's been an interesting time this month, but that's really that's what I read and what I have going on. So definitely let me know what you read, if you had any standouts in the month of February, as well as your thoughts on any of the books that I talked about. Make sure to give the video a like. As always, check the links in the description for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizards of the Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.